Well, welcome to another Homebrew Wednesday, starting in the brew shed again. But this one's not about a brew, it's about brewing equipment. One of the, I think my new subscribers or a commenter on one of my videos asking for a little bit of advice on gas in the UK, what's available, and a decision to make of whether to go for a gas set up for your all grain or electric. Now I've, I suppose, got a foot in both ponds. I've got a Burco commercial catering boiler to heat my mash water, which I could also use as a brew kettle or a brew in a bag system. And I have the gas, which I only use for actually boiling the water. My reason was to go for gas because of the size pots I'd picked up. I wanted to stick with the, I hadn't got the Burco boiler when I first started, so it would have been like a lot of the guys have to heat the strike water up in the same pot that they are going to boil in, so it does get a little bit awkward. So I went and looked for an additional method. My way was to use the largest capacity Burco I could get and keep that either for a brew in the bag if I fancy doing one of those, or just to use it as an HLT, which is what my primary use for it is at the moment. I also picked up a pot which was this one, ideal for the job. It's the American turkey fryer pot, which a lot of the guys in the States obviously use because you can buy these fairly cheap with a burner and be set up relatively quickly, easily and cheaply. And obviously in the States, second hand, these are peanuts. Over here they're hen's teeth or rocking horse shit, whatever you want to call it. But I knew what it was and I bought it. So that in part made my decision gas because of the equipment I'd got. A lot of the guys in the UK are using the cheap Tesco's kettles, £5 a pop, stripping the elements out and fitting them into plastic brew bins, which you can do, they work. No one that I know of has had a major catastrophe, as long as you get the right type of bin that's not going to get too soft and supple when it's at 100 degrees. Boil size, you might want to go to 2 elements. The problem then is the current draw of 2 elements running at 2200 watts. That's, you know, 4.5 kilowatts of pull on your ring main. Your plugs are going to get hot. You're starting to stretch the old system for general use. Normally, say something like an immersion heater in your house would have its own separate feed, and that's 16 amp 3.3 2.4 kilowatt water heater. So your household system, if you're using everything else like a tumble dryer's going and washing machine, or you know, you're drawing in a fair bit of current, especially if you're like me. You're going to be down in the garden in a shed running on an extension lead. I know one of the other guys had the problem in last summer with his electric tripping, because basically you're just pulling too much current for an extension lead even when it's fully extended, which you must do, extend those leads even if you're not using it all, because they act as a resistance and they will melt the leads. I've had one that I picked up, and all the sort of the last 10 metres of cable was just melted all together, and I managed to salvage the reel for another job. Anyway, going back to the discussion, gas or electric. So your option would be on something like this: is you cut a hole, fit a kettle element. I know one of the guys, he's got an aluminium, a steel pot, same as mine. This is my aluminium one. When he bought that from Powell Brewing, he had them cut a hole to fit a kettle element. They work with a reasonable degree of success. My only sort of argument on that is obviously kettle elements aren't designed to be running an hour. There are elements like that that are obviously rated for long-term running, such as the ones you get in wallpaper strippers, which I happen to have one. Those elements run about 20 quid versus your kettle element, which is a £5. So what's the disadvantage? Well, what happens if that element blows, or you get electrical problems, your exposed wires you get a boil over, that hot water runs down, shorts out on your electric trips. You've got to dry that out, you've got to get your electric going, you've lost time, you may have blown the element, you might have buggered your electric up. That's one disadvantage. The other disadvantage is controlling the heat. Now a small pot like this with one element, or a slightly larger pot, you can probably keep it as a rolling boil without that point where you're getting the hot break and you want to back off the heat a little bit. You can turn it off and let it settle down, or if you've got two elements and you get a rolling boil, you can cut down to one element just to give you that tick over, depending on your volumes. You can obviously buy solid state relay with a PID controller, which would control the temperature of the element by basically a pulse width modulation. So it fires the voltage at, it's like turning it on and off. If you turn an element on and it stays, it will reach its maximum temperature load and it will stay at that. If you wanted to have that element say at 70 degrees, there's no way of doing it, unless you've sort of like a water heater has got a thermostat in it. Basically you'd have your probe in the side going back to your controller, and that will basically turn it on and off in over a sequence of time. So you'd have states of it being energised on and being turned off, starting to cool down. The speed at which those vary controls the temperature. So obviously that's something else you've got to look at. Depending on obviously your DIY skills, you might not have the skills or the confidence to go around cutting holes in pots, wiring up electronic controllers, or just basic wiring. You might want to buy something off the shelf like the electric bin, which has got the element in and the thermostat on the side, or the brew pack spoiler, which is a little bit more heavy duty. Disadvantage of those is volume. Brew pack spoiler is usually adequate for a 5 gallon batch that you put in a fermenter like over there, but you might want to do a bigger boil, so you need a bigger capacity. With the gas, the advantage is that heat system is external from the pot. So if I want to brew 15 litres or 25 litres, I can use this pot. Job's done. If I want to brew a 50 litre batch, 30 litre batch, 40 litre batch, job's done. No elements, I haven't got to run two systems. Obviously a small batch you wouldn't want to do in here with an element, because your volume is not going to cover the element, or it might be too shallow. By the time you're starting to get your boil off, your element will be exposed, it would blow during the course of a boil, and you're back to square one again. You've got to pull the water out, you've got to change the element, that's another thing, you've got to buy a second element. Having said that, the disadvantages, obviously the advantage is cost. If you've got the money to have a controllable system, obviously this, I can control the heat by adjusting the amount of gas flowing through the burner. This system has a thermostat. It's not highly reliable, but it is horses for courses really, and how you're going to do your system. What system do you want? How big do you want it? Making your DIY electric kettle for a 33 litre plastic bin, say for instance, may be as good as you need to get. You can always do double batches, or you know, that sort of limit. I know some of the guys use those blue plastic food grade containers which are sort of 50 litres, and have even converted those to electric, but I really don't know with some of those plastics. They are food safe, but that's basically designed at ambient temperatures. You start getting chemicals leaching out of plastics when they get 70 degrees, 80 degrees, 90 degrees, that could potentially spoil the flavour of your beer. Obviously with a metal pot you don't get those issues. Obviously there are advantages, disadvantages of both systems. If you know, you're brewing in a storm and the power cables go down, or the guys are doing work in your area and you haven't got that postcard come through to notify you that the power company's going to be working, and it's your day off work and you decided to brew, your plans are ruined for the day. Mine aren't. One of the big disadvantages, I suppose, would be cost. Here in the UK, a 19 kilo cylinder is probably going to run you 35 to 44 pounds depending on whether it's Cala or flow gas. They're the two main players for gas in the UK. If you've already got a cylinder, if you're with Cala, you're going to have to pay a purchase or deposit for the gas and the cylinder. With flow gas, I think their system is they give you the bottle and you pay for the gas. There's no cylinder rental. There wasn't in my case anyway. Last time I had a flow gas cylinder years ago, I never exchanged the cylinder. I've got both. I've got a Cala and a flow gas. I use flow gas because the guy's local. He's open 7 days a week. He's home delivery. If I run out of gas Saturday night, I can phone him up or drop an email. Sunday morning they work from 10 to 4. He'll chuck one on the truck and deliver it. And he does any size you want from the little caravan. Well, I'll show you the size bottles that are available. Well, in here, propane gas is what you want to be using. In the UK, the bottles are orange, with the exception of the patio gas, which Cala do for the barbecues in those patio heaters. But these are your smallest bottles, which is 3.9 kilo. Next one up is a 6 kilo. They're the sort of things you probably find in your camper vans, go camping with, caravans. Next one up is a 19 kilo, which is sort of garage workshop heaters, portable gas heaters, that sort of size. That's the one up. Some of them are 23s depending on the manufacturer's bottle. Cala gas do, the biggest one is 47 kilos, and flow gases is I think a couple of kilos less. But they're the big boys. They're about 4 foot tall. That's 47 kilos of gas. Now that is cheaper to buy than 2 of those, which would only give you 38 kilos of gas. So size is everything when it comes to buying gas. The bigger volume you buy, the cheaper the rate of the gas. So if you can get hold of a cylinder, it does pay to buy one. So that covers the size of cylinders. So yeah, obviously not everyone could accommodate a 47 kilo cylinder, but if you can, it is worth the cost saving versus the volume. It is a bit cheaper, or quite a bit cheaper. Those little ones are obviously, they won't get you a brew day. So I mean, if you've got one of those, they're no good. The amount of gas one of these eats would spit one of those bottles out. Really, any sort of thing is probably, if you've got one of those, just keep it as a backup. If your larger one runs out halfway through a boil, that one might see you through. But I think even those little ones are getting on for £20 now, versus sort of 40. What's the big one? 55, 58 quid now, depending on where you go. How competitive your gas supplier is. It varies from area and supplier. So yeah, I mean, that's the sort of, obviously gas again, you're portable, you can brew anywhere. Nice day, you want to go out in the garden, you can brew out in the garden, you can brew in your garage, you can brew in your shed. With electric, you can do all those, but you've got to have an extension lead that's man enough to run your electric. Which is another consideration: portability, flexibility of your system. My gas system is more flexible because if I only want to brew a 15 litre batch, I can't use the big pot, obviously. I can use the small one. If I've got an electric kettle, and only an electric kettle, that would be very difficult. I would have to probably look at doing a stovetop with a smaller pot. So for me, gas works better at the minute. Having said that, if I build a home system from kegs in a pot, then obviously that would be electric all the way through. Obviously you could just use your home system on the mash tun, recirculate the mash and your strike water and your sparge water, and then just boil on gas. But most people obviously do a 3 system and have the whole thing set up. But yeah, I mean, that's a future plan for myself. But I would still retain the gas rig just in case, you know, something goes wrong part way through, your electric fries. You could literally just dump the fluid into another pot, stick it on the gas and finish the job off without any dilemmas. So I would always have a plan B. But for me, yes, gas. The only disadvantage is the initial, you know, if you've got to buy a cylinder, you're going to outlay £50–60 to buy your gas, but then how often are you going to have to keep buying one? Electric you're not going to see, because obviously it's going on your quarterly bill, so it's a bit difficult to sort of gauge how many kilowatts you use in a brew session versus how many kilograms of gas you use. But gas does work out a lot dearer to brew than electric, but it is really a case of what you can use. So really you've got to look and think your system, where you're going to be brewing, how big are you going to want to brew. If you get bit by the bug and you want to upgrade your system, do you want the cost of starting again? I mean, yes, you can just take the elements out, put them in a bigger pot, or you can keep that pot as backup and make a bigger system. For me, I haven't got to do that. I just choose what size pot I want to use and light the flame. That's the advantage. The trade-off is it's a little bit dearer to brew on gas than it is electric, or it is in the UK. But I've probably dragged this out far too long, and you're still none the wiser, because it's still basically, I can't tell you what you need to buy. You need to work out how you want to do it. You might not want to. I mean, these aren't expensive. If you're paying more than 30 quid for one of these, this is a 7.5 kilowatt. There are some on eBay that are 20 quid, but they're only 5.5 kilowatt. 5.5 kilowatts is going to struggle to bring 60 litres of water to a boil. 7.5 just does it, from other people who've used it. And I don't think they're at 70 litre, obviously that's brimful capacity. But that's pretty much really the heaviest one you can get in the UK, unless you start spending some serious money on a pitch pot burner. So you've got to go electric. But then you're only sort of restricted to 3 kilowatt heating elements, so you've got to put 2 in. If you look at any of the second-hand big systems, they usually got an immersion heater, water heater, and there'll be 1 or 2 of those. I'm looking at converting some kegs, having some welding done, and doing that myself. But other than that, the alternative is one of these Burkos, 33 litres to their mark, which you can get a little bit more in. Plenty of UK brewers on YouTube and off of YouTube on the forums, and people in other parts of the world that use the Burko boilers, either as brewing a bag or just use them. Disadvantage of these is the elements are quite expensive when they go wrong, but they do last a good while. And the taps, you might want to look at changing the taps. But it really is what system you want to use, how you're going to brew, how you know, can you do it? Are your DIY skills up to making something, or is you got to buy something off the shelf? Then that eliminates that. You buy something off the shelf, but then you're going to pay more for it. So yeah, my advice is look at how you want to brew, where you're going to brew, how much you're going to want to brew. It's a bit difficult to say, well, you know, I'm happy making 5-gallon batches, but there might be, you know, as this hobby progresses on. I mean, just over a year ago I was still doing kilos, and I wouldn't have gone all grain if it hadn't been for getting sort of sucked into the YouTube brewing vacuum. I'd still just probably be doing the odd kit and not bothered anymore and just buy cheap beer from work. But you buggers have made me build a shed and fill it full of shiny porn stuff. Brew porn. Stainless steel shelves and benches and extractor fans and huge copper water chillers. I've done it all myself, so I've saved a shitload of cash. If you've got a shitload of cash, you can just phone someone up like Powell Brewing and give them your credit card number, and they'll send you all the shiny bits and the gas things, and you just got to make a wooden frame up. But to me, that's part of the hobby, is getting your fingers dirty and making stuff, like I do for every other hobby. Well, it's usually a financial necessity that the skills develop, but to me, it's part of the hobby. Is you know, it's homebrew. You make it yourself. It's not just restricted to making the beer or the wine, it's making the equipment. I'm waffling on. I only come down here just to do this little segment, get some empty bottles to bottle my wheat beer. See, before this turns into a 20-minute video, if it hasn't already. And you're none the wiser. It's basically your decision. I got a bottle of friggin' beer. This is that bit where people say, I'm going to be bottling me beer. You don't want to see that, it's boring. We've got swing tops, so what I do, dunk one in the steriliser, while I pump the other one. And dunk that one in the steriliser, while I pump the other one. So we both get the dunk with the steriliser in short succession of time. Comes from a penny pinching boss learning your productivity. What a pleasing sight that is in a full bottle tree. Means a lot of bottling. Well, at least I'll be able to enjoy the fruits of my labour in about 3 weeks' time. The only problem is that screen has now just gone tits up. It's all gone blue and orange with lines going across it. I don't know whether it's lens or screen. Probably the screen, which means I now need another camera. Fucking wonderful. Well, 34 plus 2 little bottles out of that batch. I always do a clear one just to see. Obviously it doesn't really matter about settling down in this. It will remain cloudy for the duration, but yeah, sort of down the bottom of the barrel, the last one I put in a clear inch gun bottle. Also use them as sort of little samplers really, just to see how it's coming along before we crack open the big one. Magners pint bottle as well, so we've got a proper pint out of it. Plus we had about half a glass as well. A flat beer straight out of the tank with some yeast in it. If you can drink it, you can drink it straight. It's going to be a cracker in the bottle. Right, well I won't have a chance to do the last events beers. I'll have to leave that and see if I can do a separate review or put it in next week's, because obviously, as you should know, or most of you will know, there is the Smash Off Challenge beers, which we should all be well into it by now. Obviously the boys from down south managed to pick theirs up direct and didn't hit any problems with couriers. The rest of us, I think Scoosy hasn't received his yet, Tony Yates hasn't received his in Norway. Mine turned up the day before reviews, because I thought, oh shit, well we're supposed to be reviewing them tomorrow, they're all cloudy. And it turned up in 2 heavy duty plastic bags, sellotape, and I thought, that's unusual. I was expecting a box. And I thought, unless of course it's leaked. I thought it shouldn't do, they're all PET bottles. But Tom, of course, you know Tom. Wrong hops, glass bottle, Tom. Anyway, I cuts open the plastic bag and I have an empty PET bottle. As I managed, if the camera will pick it up, I can't tell because I no longer have a screen worth looking at. A nice crack all the way across from there, and obviously the contents soaked in to the box and all the other bottles. So I've got 6 in the fridge chilling to try and speed up the settlement process. So as soon as the first, well it'll be the first 7, because obviously number 1 I've lost, which is Zippy's beer. It smells nice. But as a result, people's labels aren't quite what they were intended, so where we were, everything's falling down now. I hope I'm not doing this and this is all fucked. I hope it's just, well, I hope it's just a screen, it doesn't really matter because I fucked the camera now. I can't see what I'm doing. Yeah, so I mean, for example, that's my beer. I think, well, yeah, it's got my label on it, so I hope they haven't managed to cross label. Harry's is okay. Tom's is okay. Ben's is okay. Dave's not so good. Jonah's and everyone else's is in the fridge. But basically, yeah, they're ripped, torn. The inks run because there's beer in them. So I don't know what we'll do about label scoring for the separate. Who's got the best label? I don't know. Default halfway. Everyone gets. I don't know what it was. 3 out of a score of 5 for the label. I don't know what we discussed that. Or just by default give everyone maximum rating for my label. Seems I can't really judge one against the other. I can only judge a few. Even Harry's is starting to come off the bottle because it was wet. But yeah, they're still. I don't know how clear some of them were, but you can see, you know, like the sediment film still all circulating around in the bottles, rather than getting down. That's clearer. Shad Brewery. Guys haven't got to that yet, so really I'm sort of gauging on what they say is clear and what isn't clear, to try and assess when I've got a fair and level playing field to judge everyone's beer on. So I will get them down. I mean, I know how clear mine should be because I've got some in the box. Yeah, it's the same. I can see, you know, the sediment's down to about that far. It's just not compacted back into the bottle. So I'm figuring probably, I don't know if the ones in the fridge are okay. Probably before the weekend. If not, it's going to be starting over the weekend and uploaded next week. I think it really all depends on gravity. And obviously I've got to make time for my next 20 litre or whatever it is, I can't remember now, 20ish, 17, 18 litres of waste beer to bottle, plus the 2 experimental batch small beers from that with my own hops, which, well, there'll be a few bottles. I might do some of them in 330s, and when I get around to sending some beers out, I'll send people out a waste beer with them hops to see if anyone can say, yeah, it's a bit Goldingsy. I mean, this is a good idea with the smash beers. Obviously we've sort of seen what we can get out of the grain and a hop, rather than just making it everyone having Marisota and choosing a hop. We've used different hops, different malts, although I think quite a few people watching the reviews have gone for a Marisota, generally because that's the most widely available base malt in the UK, unless you specifically search for a different English power malt, or go for a different grain entirely. I nearly did do 100% wheat, but opted for Munich. But anyway, mine's not up yet, so I won't discuss it any further than that. The details are all on the Smash website. So, I'll enjoy my orange flavoured, slightly orangey American wheat beer. I'm almost looking as much forward to drinking this as I am trying them smash beers down there. But anyway, with the waffle about the do you go all grain? When you go all grain, do you go gas or electric? Anyone wants to discuss it further, who's considering starting out, don't hesitate to ask. It's easier probably to do a video or talk online than it is to keep writing sections on comments on YouTube. But yeah, you can find Norfolk Hillbilly on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube. Although I don't always have you on, because I don't always leave the camera plugged in. Because there's all other crap plugged into it. Right, waffling over. Cheers for the beers. See you next week.